poured funding into it. We poured time, we poured effort, we poured energy as an industry into Industry 4. And it wasn't that magic wand.
Look, Jim, I just spent $50,000 on a new piece of software. My team, they're not using it. What's going on?
Over a third. This is the people who are toxic to the workplace. They talk bad about where they work. They're actively jumping off the back of the canoe.
Welcome to Machine Shop Tech Talk, or welcome back to Machine Shop Tech Talk. If this is your first time here, please remember to drop a subscribe, drop a like, and hang out. Today, I have the opportunity to be with my buddy, Jim Mayer. Jim is a recognized leader, storyteller, and advocate for the transformative power of connection in the manufacturing industry. As the founder of the Manufacturing Connector, Jim has built a platform that strengthens the industry through leadership development, content creation, and community building initiatives. With over 2 decades of experience, Jim has worked across the manufacturing landscape from the shop floor to the boardroom, helping companies bridge the gap between technology, people, and culture. He produces and hosts the Manufacturing Culture Podcast and Work But Make It Human, 2 shows that explore leadership, workforce development, and the human side of manufacturing. He also leads the Manufacturing Connector, a YouTube series focused on connecting manufacturers with innovative solutions and real-world insights. Now, whether Jim is leading workshops or he is creating content or sparking conversations at industry events, Jim's mission is clear: to connect people to ideas, opportunities, and each other, because the future of manufacturing is human. If his face looks a little bit familiar, welcome my buddy Jim. He actually had me on his podcast a couple weeks ago. Jim, I am so glad you're here. Dude.
Arthur, that was awesome, man. Having written that, I haven't heard anybody say it back. And that was just, I have goosebumps, man. That was awesome. You did that so well. Yeah. I'm so grateful, so thankful to be on your show, be on the other side of the interview questions. This is going to be a lot of fun.
You're a fantastic writer, dude. When I saw that, I was like, I just got to read it the way he wrote it. Dude writes brilliantly. The reason, Jim, that we're here today is there's something that you and I have kind of connected over, and that's the culture in machine shops.
Yep.
If anyone watching wants to hear my story, I'll put a link to the episode I was on Jim's down below. We're not going to rehash that. We were talking about, Industry 4.0 and all of the solutions that it brings, the intentions behind the movement. But there's a major missing right now in manufacturing. It wasn't the silver bullet that we thought it was going to be. So why do you think that is, Jim? I know we've already talked about it, but I'm trying to set you up here beautifully, my friend.
And I love it, man. This is such a massive issue because we poured funding into it. We poured time, we poured effort, we poured energy as an industry into Industry 4. And it wasn't that magic wand that we all thought it was going to be. It wasn't the solution to capacity. It wasn't the solution to the skills gap. It wasn't the solution to, the efficiency of our shops. And that's because when we focused on it completely, we eliminated the human element to Industry 4.0, right? And we tried to integrate Industry 4.0 into the way it's always been done, instead of saying, okay, Industry 4.0 has some great tools, some great technology. It's going to take humans, but it's going to also take leadership at a different level. And by level, I mean capability of leadership to make it happen, right? And I've talked a couple of times about that culture paradigm or paradox between culture and automation. It's a real thing. It's the shops that need Industry 4 tools and technologies are the ones who are culturally not set up to take advantage of them.
Yeah, and I think it's the underlying thing. It doesn't matter, what's the word about, if you don't lay the proper foundation, anything you build on mud is going to crumble without the right foundation when you're thinking structurally. And I think that's, what we've seen with Industry 4.0, like you're talking about. There's all these great tools, but if you're putting them into a shop that doesn't have the right culture to make it succeed, they're bound to fail because everything's going to fail until you fix the bottom level, that foundation.
Absolutely.
I know you speak at a lot of events, and I know you run workshops and everything to help companies on this. So what are you seeing that makes a difference on the culture level? Like, or what are some common problems you're seeing leaders come to you with right now that you're supporting them through?
Yeah.
So the people out there might be able to identify stuff in their own shop right now.
Yeah. First of all, Arthur, every shop has a culture. They may not know what that culture is, which happens more often than not. Sometimes they don't like the culture because they have just acquired the shop, they've inherited, they've whatever that acquisition looks like, they are now in charge of a shop. But most of the time, leaders don't understand what their shop culture is. They think that culture doesn't apply to them, but every shop has a culture, and ultimately, and you and I have talked about it before, culture is just the alignment of values between the organization and the employees that work there, right? When you have that alignment between the humans that make your things and the organization that employs them, that's when you're going to have a good culture. It could be a culture of accountability, it could be a culture of anything, and what may be a good culture for me may be a bad one for you, and vice versa, because everybody's so individualistic, right? So there's no such thing as truly a bad culture that I've found. I've found that even in shops that I find to be amazingly toxic, have values alignment with people, right? Because there are people that value what I find to be toxic, and vice versa, right? I've walked into shops where I'm like, oh my God, this place is horrible. And people are like, oh, I love it here. I'm a great cultural fit. Here's why, blah, blah, blah. And it all comes down to the values of the organization, right? So going back to your original question about what people are coming to me with, it's right now the biggest problem is a lot of shops have paid a lot of money for platforms and tools that they aren't able to utilize because they can't get their team. They didn't do the change management right. So whether it's a new ERP system and people think that it's Big Brother watching, or it's a CRM system, or it's whatever that looks like, a new AI tool for CAD CAM drawings, if you don't do that change management right, to where people have that authorship of what that change looks like, you're never going to be successful. So the biggest problem that I'm seeing right now is people coming to me and saying, hey, we've invested tens of thousands of dollars in this software. It's not working. Why? And I'm seeing that more and more often in the last, I'd say, 9 to 12 months.
So the most common thing, if I'm getting it right, is that they've invested in this change and they were sold on the value proposition that it's going to be the bee's knees or whatever saying that you want to throw in there.
I like
and
bee's
it's
knees.
not getting them. Yeah, I heard
bees
it when I was in high school from some old guy, and I was like, this is now my saying. And I've kept it now for 30 odd years because it's been a while since I've been in high school. So I wonder, can we dig in there, Jim? Can we?
Absolutely.
Let's say that's the situation. I'm coming to you right now. Look, Jim, I just spent $50,000 on a new piece of software, and my guys, my team, they're not using it. What's going on? What would you do for that company?
So I would first ask them questions about their rollout, and it all starts with, what was the reason that you initially saw the need to make this switch, make this purchase, make this subscription, whatever it is, because that helps identify if we're looking at truly a root cause or if we're just trying to fix some issue with a Band-Aid, right? And so from there, you can go one of two ways. Oh, this was a root cause fix. Okay, great. Let's talk a little bit more. If it's a Band-Aid, then I ask more questions about, okay, what what is the true root cause, right? Until we get to that root issue. And that can be anywhere from anything from the people to, processes to efficiency to whatever it looks like, capacity, etc. As the root cause. But once we have that root cause, it's all about how involved did you have your people. So my advice to companies, once leadership at that strategic level identifies a problem, whether it's through an engagement survey, whether it's through scrap and internal audits, whatever that looks like, I always suggest companies go to their team and say, hey, we've got this issue. How do we solve it? Because 9 times out of 10, the people out on the floor who are in this every day, they're going to have a solution. And you've got to ask them for that solution, right? So you got to ask them, or I always ask them, how involved was your team? And so again, process map that goes either very involved or not involved. And if they were involved, great, we can talk about that. If it was not involved, then let's talk about how we can reframe this, right? To involve them to get more buy-in in that future solution. But if it was already a yes, that they involve the team, then I ask about their storytelling. How did they frame this narrative that the change needs to happen and this was the tool? Because a lot of our providers in this industry, they're not helping us roll out these implementations, right? We're purchasing these softwares, but they're not helping us frame the narrative to go back to our team and say, hey, here's our why, here's what success looks like, here's what the future state looks like, and we don't necessarily feel we have enough time in our shops to be able to have those conversations, to tell that narrative. So what we do is we say, okay, we've bought this software, now use it, right? So that it's really a 3-pronged approach to get that adoption to really for me to understand really what the issues are behind the adoption.
I love the 3-pronged approach because I've been in shops. I've been the guy on the shop floor and I've had both situations. I've had it where we've had a town hall meeting and we've talked as a company and then I've had the other one where the owner comes by and he throws something at you and he's like, okay, here, use it. It's a very different experience.
Exactly.
It's a very different experience. One of them, I'm trying to do everything I can to not do anything with it and hope that he forgets about it. And on the other one, I feel like we're on a team and we're working towards a new future. It's a very different experience. So I love that you help owners kind of work through that. And I hope people watching are writing that down because, you start with the motivation, then you go, okay, it depends on where you go from there. And then you talk about, okay, well, what was the root cause? Are you actually addressing it? Were your people involved? These are all very, very important things that I hope anyone watching takes down, because anytime you do a new project, this is the process to follow.
And it's free, right? You don't need to get a consultant in for that. You don't need to come to me necessarily or go to Arthur or any other consultant out there. This is just best demonstrated practice for anybody out there, right? And so I hope that your listeners are able to take this away, write it down, put it as a sticky note or on their whiteboard. Everybody has these whiteboards, right? Put it on the stinking whiteboard and just check off every time you identify that small incremental change that you want to make in your shop. Go through each of those 3. And if you do that, your people will be bought in. I promise you.
From personal experience, it's a whole different experience. So if you're leading people, it makes the world of difference. But we could probably go in circles on that for a while.
Hours.
It's a very important point, okay? It's a very important point. With all of that being said, and you've got, you've stepped the owner through all of that, why are you even on this mission? I mean, culture is not something a lot of machine shops want to talk about. I've worked in a few. I've worked with a lot of them. So what motivates you, man? Like, why do you even care?
It's a great question, man. I love the people of this industry. The people, when I was in distribution, I walked into my first machine shop. I was selling construction supplies, and I walked into a machine shop to make a delivery, and I felt like I was at home. I was back in shop class, the sights, the smells, the sounds. But what I really fell in love with were the humans, the people of that shop. And I still go back to that shop whenever I'm in the area, and I'm not going to call them out by name on here, but
No.
they know who they are,
Yeah.
because I've told them this story hundreds of times. And I love the people at this industry at all levels, whether it's the leaders or the frontline employees, right? The folks actually making things. And I want this industry to be successful because I have seen statistically and firsthand how much this industry can create a different life for people, right? This industry has historically been in your country and in mine, Arthur, the backbone of the middle class post World War II. This is how we created a pathway to generational happiness, right? I mean, it was a solid thing. And so I began this journey to measure engagement. That's where employee engagement in 2016 I was finishing my MBA and created a talent management and employee engagement framework for deskless employees as part of my MBA program. And I saw all over the place all these platforms talking about employee engagement, but all of them were geared towards white collar employees. They were all geared towards people who sat behind desks all day, had access to computers and that kind of stuff. At the time when I created my survey, only 94% of employees in our industry actually had a smartphone. We still had 6% in 2016 of people who didn't even have a smartphone because they didn't want one, right? So I started this crusade of finding the best culture for each employee because of the engagement levels. I want people to feel engaged where they go to work. I want them to wake up on Monday morning and not feel like they're selling themselves short by going somewhere. And so in 2018, I started doing these surveys, just offering them as surveys to shops, side gig. Since then, I've done over 300. I'm encroaching on 400 engagement surveys at this point. And I can tell you, Arthur, the people of this industry aren't following the trends that we hear about statistically, right? We've heard statistics out of some very prominent institutes out there that close to 50% of our workforce in manufacturing is engaged. And I don't see that. Granted, I focus on small to medium size companies. I don't work with companies over 200 employees. That's not my wheelhouse. I actually prefer under 100 because those are the shops that I know and love so much, right? Same as you.
Yeah.
What I see is about just under a third of employees in those size shops are actively engaged. They're in the front of the canoe rowing every time the boss says row. They enjoy it. They give extra discretionary effort. They're there.
Yeah.
The middle of the boat is exactly a third of the population of frontline employees. They're the ones who are in the boat. They're facing the right direction, but their oars are out of the water. They're not working. They show up. They gather a paycheck. They're not giving extra discretionary effort. They're not putting in any of that extra stuff because they're not happy. Truly, but they know that they have to be someplace. Then you've got the back of the canoe, Arthur, and this is over a third, just over a third, and by just I mean it's more than a statistic deviation. Let's just put it that way, right? And this is the people who are toxic to the workplace. They talk bad about where they work. They are, to use the canoe analogy or continue with it, they're actively jumping off the back of the canoe. And so when when you look at that and the bigger percentage of people are actively jumping off the back of the canoe, that's when you know that we have to focus on this. We have to focus on culture. We have to focus on getting our message, our mission, our vision, our values right so that people aren't leaping for 50 cents, for $1.50. I mean, inflation, it's all going up. We have to make sure that our people want to be there and aren't upset showing up to work every day, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, and it's something obviously I've seen in my 23 years in manufacturing as well, where I had to deal with that. And I sometimes wonder, and I don't want to dig into it right now, but for the people listening, maybe someone there knows and they can drop it in the comments below. But there's a percentage of the manufacturing workforce that works at massive manufacturers. And those ones typically have their culture dialed in well enough that it's a small, 5% of them that don't like it. And I wonder how much that's diluting the statistics for the bigger stuff.
Yeah.
The bigger ones, because the bulk of our manufacturing workforce works in 6 companies or something stupid like that. Yeah. Right? But they're giant global entities. I don't want to, so if anyone knows watching and can drop it in the comments, I would be super grateful for that. I'm sure Jim would like to see those numbers too.
I would love to see that. Yeah. Somebody smarter than me and with better research skills, please find that out for me. I'd love,
yeah.
I'll give you a dividend every time I use it or something.
Yeah. There you go. Perfect. But it is so important, and it kind of circles back to where we started this conversation. I can't believe I just used circle back on a podcast. Anyway,
I'm so proud of you, man. I am so proud.
But to bring it back, to circle back to what we started at, it's, we've been talking about Industry 4.0 and how it doesn't solve all the problems. It's not the silver bullet we thought it was going to be. So what do you see Industry 5.0 is then? If Industry 4.0 is not the silver bullet, what do we need Industry 5 to be?
So Industry 5 is all about the integration of Industry 4 tools and technologies with the humans. For me, what that means is the evolution of leadership. What does leadership look like moving into Industry 4.0? Because we can't keep leading people over the 3 to 4 generations in the workforce the same way that we have before Industry 4 to get through into Industry 5. We have to adjust the way we lead. We have to adjust our expectations of what it means to lead. And so Industry 5 on paper is that integration between humans and the technology from Industry 4. Personally, I take it a step further and I talk more about the leadership and how to create the change that you want, create those narratives that you need to make Industry 4 technology catch on within your facility.
And tying it back into your canoe analogy, if we said instead of a canoe, or it's a rowboat, maybe you said rowboat, I can't remember.
I said canoe, but rowboat, yeah.
But if we look at it as a rowboat, then shift it a little bit. And on a rowboat, they've always got someone on that rowboat saying when to row, saying what pace to go at. And that's the leader that we seem to be missing here in the manufacturing world. Is we tell everyone, okay, here's your boat, get on it, let's go. But there's no one making sure, and there's no one managing the change that's necessary to adopt all of it. Absolutely. So we need I don't even know what the hell they're called. Row masters? I don't know. That person that's shouting into the bullhorn, row, row, row. We need those in all of the shops for all of the different change endeavors, I'm thinking.
If it wasn't row master, it needs to be. That needs to be the term. If that wasn't it before, it is now, at least to me. And I've already envisioned what my new infographics going to look like, man.
Perfect.
But you're 100% right. And what we have to, as an industry, understand is we can't just take the best machinist anymore, the best welder anymore, or whatever, and make them into a leader and expect them to lead effectively into this generation of tools and technology, right? We have to provide them skills, because leadership isn't something that somebody just is born with the skills to lead a group of machinists or welders or whatever. That takes practice. It's a muscle just like anything else, and if you don't practice, you're not going to get it right. So let's develop our leaders and get those row masters or whatever you called them, the skills that they need to truly be effective leaders through this technological digital transformation.
100%, man. And I think that's a good place to kind of wrap up our conversation. We could go on for hours, as we always say we would. The end result, look, if you've made it this far and you're listening to my words right now and you're enjoying Jim does offer some fantastic workshops, and he supports a lot of companies in their transformation change. So you can always connect with him. It doesn't have to be Jim. It could be anybody. You might have a leader in your company right now that wants to mentor the next generation of leadership. Absolutely. Whatever it is, you need to be working on your leadership. If you made it this far in the episode, 1, I want to thank my buddy Jim. 2, I would love it if you hit that like button, if you hit subscribe, if you came back next time. I will put all the contact details for Jim below. I'm only putting the ones that he says are okay, so you know it's not going to be weird when you reach out. Thank you so much, Jim.
Thank you, Arthur. This was awesome.
Yeah, it's been great to have you. And to all my machining friends out there, keep your spindles turning and earning.